full house.
Great, right?
Yeah.
You ready? Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Bombyx. My name is Cassandra Holden. It's a delight to have you here for the second of our two candidate forums hosted by the League of Women Voters. It's exciting to see so many people gathered getting involved with our local elections. I think from time to time we can feel as though we don't have a lot of power on the national level, but we can really make an impact at the local level. So thank you for being here and being part of this process. So I have a couple of flight attendant announcements. And how many of you have ever flown Southwest? Raise your hands. Okay, you are my people. You can show and tell. So if you're the kind of person who has your luggage over here and your personal item over there, and you're sitting like this, I'm going to ask you to sort of tuck in a little bit and make space. We are a full house tonight, so please make sure that all of our neighbors can join us. The restrooms are down the hall. They're a little bit of a walk, but they really and truly exist, and they're on the right-hand side, both of them. It's also important that you take this moment to silence your cell phones. Oh yes, in the middle of last night's forum, somebody took a call, so we're gonna try to be a little more polite this time around. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge our incredible partners for this event, the tech team from Bombyx and from Northampton Open Media. We are streaming this. Thank you. We're really delighted for this ongoing collaboration. Of course, none of this would happen without the incredible League of Women Voters. And if you have a burning question, if you do not already have an index card, at the back of the room, you can grab one, you can write your question. Folks will be coming around to collect those, and then we're going to share them here tonight. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can. So, you know, it's participatory. I love it. Sorry. It's really been a joy and deeply informative to have these two events here. It's so different reading about candidates online or reading about them in the paper and then experiencing these live forums, conversations, interactions between the public and the folks we will eventually choose to represent us. So thank you for being part of that process. It is also my pleasure to introduce from the League of Women Voters, Kathy Campbell, who will be our moderator tonight.
Thank you. I want to echo her sentiments. Thank you very much for being here and participating. Democracy is not a spectator sport, as somebody's shirt says on its back. Inquiry and participation are absolutely required. And a special thank you also to all the candidates who have thrown their hats in the ring this year for the 2025 Northampton municipal elections. So my name is Kathy Campbell, and I'm a member of the Amherst League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization whose mission is to encourage informed and active citizen participation in government. Tonight's candidate forum is co-sponsored, of course, by the Bombyx, and Northampton Open Media is streaming the event, and they'll have recordings of the event and also interviews with each of the candidates. 5-minute interviews will be available on Northampton Open Media's website, I believe by the end of the week. And tonight's forum is also co-sponsored by the Daily Hampshire Gazette and the Northampton Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to thank our timekeepers in the front row and all the Northampton League members who've been working very hard behind the scenes to make this happen. There are many resources on the website to help you learn more about the election, so please feel free to take a photo, whoops, it changed, of that informative sign. Maybe it'll come back. Okay, and please do silence your devices. And as a courtesy to the rest of us, please don't spend the next hour texting with your friends. This is the time to listen to the candidates. Our panelists tonight are Alexander McDougall from the Daily Hampshire Gazette and Jean Cherdak from the League of Women Voters of Franklin County. Okay, I'm going to say this later. I'm going to say it 50 times. Please hold your applause. We don't have that much time. Jean will be presenting questions from the audience and the questions that were submitted online through the Northampton League's website. And you already heard about how to write a question. If you have one and wanted to have it picked up, raise it in the air, pass it to the aisle, and it'll be picked up. So what we're going to do tonight, we have on stage right now the 6 candidates for the position of Councilor at Large of Northampton City Council. 4 will be selected by the preliminary election to advance to the general election in November. So remember that in this race, you can vote for up to 2 candidates. We'll begin with 2-minute opening statements from the candidates, and then each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question from the panel. So all questions will be addressed to and answered by all candidates. And we'll conclude with 1-minute closing statements. Okay, the timekeepers have 30-second and 15-second warning signs for you. And like I say, please hold your applause for the end. This time belongs to our candidates, so let's give them our full attention. I'm going to start out with the opening statements in reverse ballot order. And that puts Ms. Robbins first.
Good evening. Good evening, Northampton. I'm Meg, Margaret Robbins, candidate for at-large City Council. We're very grateful to the League, to Bombyx and NOM for making these good debates possible in this beautiful people's place. We love our Northampton for its unique personality, its foibles and flaws, its deep connection for us as home. But for many of us, we're not sure what our city, our home, is up to. While we see real need for change, we want to be a much bigger part of what that change looks like. We miss the straight story. We miss the ask and the input. We miss the us in city government. I had a busy career as a history teacher and a whole school change coach, a profession with a dynamic skill set that ably lends itself to council demands. Teachers read the room. We troubleshoot dynamics. We revise our thinking based on new data. We multitask. We are deep and thoughtful thinkers. We research, we do our homework, we come prepared. We own data-based decision-making. And we like human beings. We appreciate our many views and ways of learning. But once we create a shared common outcome, we work brilliantly to get there. I've been a nurse at Hampshire Community Action, a census taker, a feature writer for the Gazette, and a local jockey training farmers' racehorses for the county fair circuit. I was your Ward 1 school committee member last term, 22 to 24. I was chair of the curriculum committee. I started the ad hoc to collect data about BIPOC and LGBTQ+ staff loss. I motioned our add $250,000 to our NPS budget to retain talented teachers. In our 2019 Strong Mayor Charter, City Council is the only check and balance to the mayor, and even then, our buck stopped with the mayor. Without a diverse set of voices to query and debate, we abdicate our responsibility to any kind of democratic governance. None of this operates functionally now because we cannot check our actions against a working economic or strategic plan. Winging it or having a city hall agenda that is a mystery to many is not democracy. Just do it is not good policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Henson, you're next.
I'm next. Oh, good. Thank you. Hello, and thank you to the League for sponsoring this forum. I'm Deb Henson, candidate for City Council at Large. I decided to run for City Council because of the crisis in our public schools. As a former special education social worker who now lives in this well-educated city, I'm shocked that our schools are failing our kids. As I've been talking with residents across the city, more troubling issues have been raised. frustration over potholes and decrepit sidewalks that challenge those in wheelchairs and those with limited mobility from safely traversing the city, frustration concerning Picture Main Street. I've met with groups and individuals who've researched the current design and found that it presents safety issues. I favor a trial run. Frustration over the lack of reasonably priced and affordable housing, the presence of L3 Harris that's producing parts for nuclear weapons in the war in Gaza, ICE agents roaming our city, water sewer overpayments in anticipation of Coca-Cola leaving town with no refunds to taxpayers in the works, and paying over $3 million to a local landlord who has numerous vacant and decrepit buildings in town. So what would I do about these concerns? My background as a social worker and lawyer for mental health professionals, as well as my decades of advocacy for vulnerable groups, LGBTQ+, women and children of domestic violence, and the mentally ill, gives me a unique skill set to research and digest information, to work collaboratively with other elected officials to create alternative ways for city budgeting so that our present needs, schools, DPW, et cetera, can be adequately funded without breaking the bank. I'll explain my ideas in more detail when answering the questions posed tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Perry.
There you go. All righty. Well, hello, everyone. I, too, would like to thank the League of Women's Voters, Bombyx, the sponsors, our hosts, the panel, and all of you awesome people out there here and watching. For those who don't know me, I'm Garrick Perry, and I'm one of your current at-large counselors. I've lived in Northampton for most of my adult life. I've rented here the entire time. I've chosen to start and raise my family here and currently have 2 daughters in our public schools. I've primarily worked retail and service industry jobs, often more than one at a time, to make ends meet. I've also been a musician in the area for decades. Many of you have seen me behind counters, bars, on stages, and welcoming you into venues. For the last 4 years, it's been an honor and a pleasure to serve. First as a Ward 4 counselor, and now as one of your current city councilors at large. When I was first elected, I didn't realize how much this work would make me love the city even more. And the other thing I discovered is that our city is fueled by amazing, passionate people. The people in our departments, on our boards and committees, in our businesses, in our city hall, and simply our citizens. For the last 4 years, I've thrown myself into this work, and self-awareness is something I cherish. And I admit, I have a problem with wanting to fill my time up using my skills to uplift the communities around me. My wife says I have a problem with saying no to more responsibilities, which I think is a compliment and a critique at the same time. But I can't help but try and help. I'm sure it does make my calendar complex and my personal time perplexing, but I enjoy the challenge of balance, and it's why I've eagerly served on more select committees and commissions than many other counselors. I'm always excited to learn and gain a proper perspective and contribute all I can to our community and to make our lives better. Being a city councilor is a lot, and I'm hoping to use my experience, dedication, and passion to be a guiding force for this next council. So I'm looking forward to answering questions and learning from you all and these candidates here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Dwyer.
Hello, my name is Will O'Dwyer. I'm a Democratic Socialist running for an at-large seat on the City Council. I live just off King Street downtown, and I'm a student and renter here in Northampton. I've been on the other side of trying to get government to work in my life, not just writing policy, but trying to get help in times of need. I was formerly in the foster care system, a recipient of SNAP, and I'm on Mass Health right now. I know what it's like to be underpaid and exploited at work while struggling to make rent. I'm running for City Council to fight for policies that will make Northampton safe, affordable, and vibrant for all of us. On City Council, I will work to keep the cost of living down and keep both renters and homeowners in our city by building affordable housing, supporting rent control, and creating a tenant protection board. I ask, what good is a paradise city if we can't afford it? I will support public transit, biking, and walking infrastructure by investing more in the PVTA, improving bus signage and shelters, and creating dedicated bus and protected bike lanes. The ability to get to and from work, friends, and loved ones is the cornerstone of a vibrant community. I will be a voice for our city's working class, supporting a strong budget for Northampton Public Schools, a living wage for city workers, and project labor agreements for city contracts. Northampton should be a union town. I want to build a vibrant downtown with a thriving nightlife by working to reduce commercial rents and vacancy rates and fighting back against slumlords and flippers like Eric Shore. I see firsthand how government can use fear and terror of the other to exclude people from society. I'll work to create an inclusive and just city government standing up to the Trump administration. I will support expanding our sanctuary policies for LGBTQ people and immigrants, and I will support divesting from Israeli apartheid and will oppose L3 Harris's presence in our city. The people of Northampton deserve not just bread, but roses too. A city where all of us can afford to live and live well. Where wages are fair, the cost of living is low, public transit is well-funded and accessible, and where the music, arts, and restaurant scenes can flourish. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer.
Thanks.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Spencer, and I've been a resident of Northampton for over 35 years. I've been both a renter and a homeowner here. I've worked in restaurants, machine shops, and museums here. I got married here. With my wife, I raised 2 kids here, and I sent them to our public schools from kindergarten through high school. I like to seek out and enjoy the nature, the culture, the music, the arts, all found here. I love it here. I've spent a lot of time paying attention to what's going on in the city of Northampton. I go to city council meetings, planning board meetings, and housing partnership meetings just for fun. I'm not the only one, so. There are always interesting and informative meetings. Over the last several years, I've engaged with the community and city government over a variety of projects. I've tried to get involved in ways that are collaborative and helpful. I've raised concerns around the development of the South Campus at Village Hill, advocated for affordable housing to be built on Chapel Street, led efforts in support of the Picture Main Street redesign project, worked to promote the goals of the Gateway District. I volunteer when I can to help make the city even better. These have all been opportunities to learn how city government functions and to develop a greater appreciation for the hard work and commitment of our elected officials, city staff, volunteer members of the committees and boards, and other engaged citizens. I'm running to be councilor at large because I want to help. I want to help people understand how they can engage with their community in ways that are constructive, productive, and rewarding. I want to help make Northampton a place where everyone is safe and welcome. I want to help the city of Northampton live up to its potential. I want to help people find their community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Conrad.
Hello. We're going to talk about policy during the question, so instead I want to tell you what kind of city councilor I'm going to be if I'm elected. I'm a hard worker. I put myself through college working jobs like driving taxis, loading trucks, and waiting tables. I've started multiple businesses and earned my PhD. And I work hard with my hands, whether it's building patios, rock walls, or digging trenches. I believe in ownership and a bias for action. When I see a problem, I step up and solve it. In college, I saw the impact of the war on drugs, so I organized community members to pass public policy questions across Massachusetts. When I saw the University of Maryland administration taking advantage of graduate students and adjuncts, I formed the Graduate Council and led negotiations with the provost and the president's office. When I saw a lack of out-of-school options for youth in West Philadelphia, I partnered with local artists to buy a building and open a community art center. Here in town, I dedicated funds to send kids of refugee families to summer camps, and when I saw polarization entering Northampton and driving a wedge in our community, I stepped up and ran for city council. I'm always curious and committed to learning. I've deeply studied mathematics, computer science, earned a PhD in computational linguistics, and did postdoctoral work in a psychology department. I've become a recognized expert in ethical AI, emotional intelligence, and educational programming. And I always work to understand the fine details and nuances so that when I zoom out, I can have a comprehensive, research-backed approach while prioritizing the human element. And I earn trust, not through words or symbolic gestures, but with persistence, consistency, empathy, and solidarity. Over the years, I've been able to earn the trust of my employees at Amazon and Spotify, my peers, my tenants, and my community members. And I have backbone, but I know how to disagree and commit. I will always speak up for truth, justice, and those without a voice, and I will always stand up for my principles. But I am always willing to commit and move forward with joint resolve once a decision is made, and I will never say I told you so or work to undermine a position. With your help, I'd like to put these principles to work for Northampton. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to questions. The first question comes from Alexander.
Thank you. Over the last 2 years, there have been many issues that have led to significant divisions and tensions within the City Council and within the community. There have been disruptions at meetings regarding some of these issues. and overall just a lot of very strong division. Do you feel that there's a need for more civil discourse within the City Council and within the community, or is this just democracy at work?
Thank you. We'll start, Mr. O'Dwyer, please.
I don't know if anybody's watched the debate last night, but I definitely have been thinking a lot about what my friend Nico running for Ward 1 said, which is be kind to people, but be ruthless with systems. And I think that personal attacks and, ideas of persecution against individuals, whether they're in the government or not, is not the way to get anything done. I think that the crises that face our city, affordability, the redevelopment of downtown, L3 Harris's presence in our city require us to work together. And at the end of the day, we all have to live in Northampton, and we all want Northampton to succeed. And as a city councilor, I would definitely be willing to work with everyone, with all my colleagues and people in the community, and I would not support personal attacks.
Thank you. Mr. Perry?
Thank you. As someone who has been living this experience, I will speak and say that one of the things I love the most about City Council is that there are 9 diverse voices in our City Council. You cannot speak as a monolith for anyone here in the city because we are so unique. When we talk about discourse, I think that, I would take the word civil. I think we need more discourse, more abilities to talk. Over my terms, I have had disagreements with many councilors, but we were able to work together to talk it out and come to solutions. And I'd like to see more of that. I think that my background especially comes in a place of people work. I think that every problem is a people problem, and I have a strong background in bringing diverse folks together. I'd really like to see that. I also would like to state that I know that we are still in the midst of recovering from a pandemic, a very difficult time which pushed everyone apart. So all of our emotions are at edge. The little things are coming and becoming a little more elevated. So I want to cool the temperature down and make sure that we can have meaningful discussions with one another so we can come to solutions.
Thank you. Ms. Henson?
I think that this is part of democracy. Disagreeing and being passionate about one's views is part of the process when there is a schism. And I have also attended many city council meetings, school committee meetings, planning board meetings, et cetera. And it feels to me, and what I'm hearing from people that I've talked to, is there is this barrier, that transparency is not forthcoming from the city. So there is a rise in feeling frustrated and needing to perhaps be more insistent than is necessary. If we could get more information out in the city council realm, and also, most importantly, out to the people. So I think that part of it is, it's a democratic process to disagree, and I think that the reason for some of the elevated tension is because of this divisiveness and not that people want to be divisive or unpleasant, but they don't feel heard. And so, just like a kid, they don't feel heard, what do? They get louder. They start acting out. And I'm not saying that the city council has acted out or that anybody particularly has. I just feel like it comes from a place of passion, of wanting to have the information so that there can be civil discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cronron?
Hi. As I said in my opening statement, I'm a big believer in assuming positive intent, disagreeing and committing, and being collaborative. I really believe in inclusive governance and collaborative leadership. I believe everyone's coming to the table with good ideas, good intent, and a desire to fix a problem as they see it. When I used to teach emotional intelligence for NAVAIR, Naval Air Command, worked with a bunch of engineers in the Navy, not the most emotionally intelligent group, and we talked a lot about how to handle your emotions and the fact that there's no such thing as a bad emotion. Anger is an emotion that's not bad. Anger betrays passion. Anger betrays caring about something deeply. That anger is important, but it can't become animosity, it can't become attacks. People do need to be heard. People do need a chance to express their opinions. But we also have to be able to agree on facts. We have to be able to find the common ground on which to have the discussion. If we're going to talk about whether we can use stabilization funds to fix the school budget, we need to agree on what the different stabilization funds are, how much is in which one, what is the free cash, and then we can have a discussion of what we can move and what we can't. If we're going to talk about Picture Main Street, we need to understand what's going towards improving the infrastructure and how badly needed it is, and then we can address the needs of the businesses. When I resolve conflict at work, in my job as a senior machine learning engineering manager, when two people come with different opinions and I try to get them to talk to each other, I always ask them before starting, are you leaving room for being wrong? And we don't start a debate unless both of them say, I'm leaving some room for being wrong. And I ask everyone to leave a little bit of that room.
Thank you. Ms. Robbins.
Thank you. I'm actually always surprised by the insistence that there is divisiveness, and there's this word vitriol that has been shared throughout the city, and it comes from, I think, generally, people in this community who are saying we are not being heard. And in the case that I think that largely gets misrepresented is people who are asking for justice for children. And I don't really understand how that asking, the constant presence of being able to say, this is a daily demand, this is something that happens for our children every day, and no one's listening. I don't believe in name calling. I was raised as a Quaker in the Society of Friends. I was raised to speak truth to power. I believe facts speak for themselves, and the facts that we have heard throughout the course of this last year or so are really devastating. The reality is that people have come meeting after meeting to say, please listen to the children, and we're speaking for the children, and it hasn't happened. That piece needs to change. We do need to sit down at the table together, but it does take two voices at the table to be able to say, I hear you, one side has power and the other side doesn't, and if the other side are 5 and 7 and 9 and 16-year-olds, then we need to really say, what is the representation that matters in this city? Who really cares?
And Mr. Spencer?
Thank you. So I've heard a lot of this talked about as well, and having been to many meetings, I think I'm keenly aware of what we're talking about. I feel that we are all responsible for the words that we say, and I think that people make those choices, and they're free to make those choices. These conversations are difficult. I hear people talk about the struggles that their kids are having, and it's very upsetting. I think that the best way to find solutions is to work together and to work together well. I have had opportunities in my life here in the city where I've been the person who's been in the room who's been very upset about a decision that's been made by the city. And it can be a very frustrating experience. And I understand that feeling. I will say that I've also had many experiences where taking a different approach, finding people to help guide me through the questions that I have, working with people has led to results that are, I think, an improvement overall. And so I just think that people can make the choice how they want to speak to each other, and I think that I've chosen my path.
Thank you. The next question will be presented by Jean.
First, I want to say thank you to all of you for all these wonderful questions. I wish I could ask them all. So I'm kind of picking through. Many of them are the same question asked various ways. So I'm going to try and be fair to everyone. Okay, my first question is, seniors are suffering with the increasing cost of living. What new policies and policy changes would you advocate for to help seniors to age in place in Northampton?
Ms. Henson, could you start with us? Start that one. Ms. Henson, yes.
Oh, well, being kind of a senior myself, I I think that the Senior Center is a fabulous resource for all of the seniors here. I don't know that it's the only resource. I think there could be financial break. I know there are some financial breaks for seniors in certain funding. But I guess, you know, what I come down to is some of the seniors that I've met, I mean, I'm fortunate to have very good health and I can get around quite well. But I find that a lot of people, as they age, have limited mobility issues, and they are sometimes having trouble, what I hear, getting around this city. They find that the sidewalks, you know, I've heard a lot of people as I've gone out campaigning saying, I tripped and I fell, I broke my wrist, I tripped, you know, the potholes are terrible, I have to buy new tires. I think part of it is we have to look, you know, kind of like Abraham Maslow's pyramid. We have to get the basic foundation done first for seniors and for everybody. But I guess seniors are more vulnerable, particularly with health issues and mobility issues. I think socialization is really important. And what I would do is I would continue to have these gatherings, these town hall type meetings, find out what seniors need. I must admit, I don't know exactly what the needs are, but I would like to address them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer?
So I think there's a lot of ways we can address the cost of living for seniors in the city. I know that there's many ways that already exist as far as some ways to maybe not pay into like the CPA tax and other examples. But I think that the solution is multifaceted. And so there are probably many seniors who right now living in the city who are living in a home that's much larger than they need. And I think one of the things that's very exciting is that we're about to undertake several construction projects close to downtown that could potentially be homes for seniors. And that would give seniors a place to live where they would be in close walking distance or rolling distance, as the case may be, to many of the attractions or activities that they'd be interested in partaking in. And it would also mean that the house that they are in, that's much larger than they need, could become available for a family with children. So we could have families moving into the city and living in homes that are being underutilized as they are right now. I think there are many ways the city is working to improve the quality of life for seniors. There's going to be, I think, 4 times as much money put out for sidewalk improvements this year, thanks to some money that was put forward for that. The improvements on Main Street are going to go a long way to making our downtown much safer and more enjoyable for seniors.
Thank you. Mr. Conrad?
Like most things, this is definitely not like a one-stop solution. There's a lot of things we need to do. I've talked to a lot of seniors who are very concerned with their real estate taxes. They bought a house in the 80s for like $80,000 and the city told them it's worth $500K, so, you know, pay taxes on that. I think we absolutely need to consider whether it's reductions, freezes, incremental annealing of how much you're paying. And there's ways to recoup that money. We could join Cambridge, Provincetown, and Wellfleet in advocating for a real estate transfer tax on transactions over $1 million. That could supplement more than enough to cover the gap in the seniors who we will not be increasing real estate taxes on. We need to make it easier for seniors to rent out part of their house, not just move out of it, but convert it to multi-unit, rent a room, have an in-law suite. Things that make it easier to utilize existing housing more, absolutely, I'm all for it. Make it easier to use that space. The best landlords I ever had as a tenant before I owned my own house were seniors who were sharing their home. Amazing landlords, for the most part. And there is one very specific thing that I think we should consider, and that is centralizing snow and ice removal around town. A lot of seniors, it's very hard for them to care for their sidewalks, and it's a very straightforward thing with a simple fee that we could cover, centralize, ensure all sidewalks are clear equally without the burden to homeowners. So I think it's a little bit of everything, but those things could make a dent.
Thank you. Mr. Perry?
Thank you. I would also like to kind of reiterate what folks are saying, that like most problems in the city, it requires a multifaceted approach. As someone who is actually now trying to convince my family, my mom, my grandmother, to move up from DC, senior living is really important to me. We've talked about some of the opportunities for socializing. Northampton Neighbors is one. The Senior Center is robust. Really important is housing. I've been following some of the new housing developments, and one of the things that is really exciting is that they will be more accessible. It is very important to have accessibility be at the forefront in terms of looking at our sidewalks and clearing. I've been very much at the forefront serving on the Ordinance Review Commission as the vice chair, along with Councilor Dubs, who really holds that to heart. We're looking at ways to make sure that our streets and our roads are clear for seniors. In terms of things that I have supported and I will support are more robust tax exemptions, not only for seniors, but also for our veterans. I think that is very important. We have a very vibrant veteran population. And I also agree that part of the solution is connecting people. You don't just have to downsize. It's about bringing people in together. There's a lack of space for our service industry workers, and who wouldn't want to have a cook or someone to be around to help them while they are aging in dignity?
Thank you. Ms. Robbins.
Thank you. I have to say that I'll also join the coterie of, this is very much an issue in front of me. I'm a senior as well. My family my husband and I live in the first house we bought, which we've only owned for a few years. We've been renters for many years before that, and we really like our house. We'd like to be able to stay there and afford it, but like many of our friends in this city, people we've known for over 50 years, the house they bought when they were young, is now being assessed at an astonishing amount of money. I remember when the first house in Northampton sold for $500,000, and I'm sure many of you do too. It was a house on Elm Street. It was bought by somebody from California, and people went, wow, what's that gonna mean in terms of what my crummy house is worth? Well, it means a lot. Number of years later, it means that the taxes on our houses are much more than we can afford. And we really want to live in our houses. For some of us who have large houses, there is an option of being able to share, being able to possibly bring in family, being able to create multifamily units, which I think is a wonderful answer for a larger home, being able to move into a smaller part. What we don't look at are really co-housing possibilities, places where people can really support each other as they get older. It's very difficult to get into existing ones in the city. And I must say, from friends of mine, I can tell you that using the pass to be able to curtail your taxes on your property is humiliating. It's something that we can't say we do a good job of.
Thank you. Next question from Alexander, please.
Thank you.
Wait.
Oh, did I miss you? Mr. O'Dwyer, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
I may admit I might not have a great answer on this, being a little bit more on the opposite end of the issue. But I actually do think that seniors facing questions of how to make ends meet at the end of the month share a lot of the same problems that we as young people do, we as renters do. To echo what everybody else said, I do think this is a multifaceted issue, but from my own personal experiences, I do think that making a mobility downtown is absolutely a necessity. Speaking from anecdotal experience, back in January, my street was basically a sheet of ice. And if you watched me try and walk around that, you would have guessed that I had mobility issues too. And I was slipping and sliding, and it took weeks for somebody to get out and do that. And I think that's unacceptable, and I can't imagine somebody who struggles to walk or to get around by themselves being able to manage that. So I think we need to invest in our DPW, but also making sure that sidewalks and other public transit areas are in an acceptable condition. I think, again, it goes back to the issue of housing. I don't think that seniors should be forced to downsize or to make decisions that they don't want to do. But I do think that we do need housing, and we do need desperately more housing options. I'd like to see an expansion of affordable units, whether that's earmarked specifically for seniors or not. But I'd also like to see the city sign on to rent stabilization. I think seniors trying to make it on fixed incomes should have that option.
Thank you. Now, Alexander.
Okay. One of the concerns that people have brought up is regarding transparency on the council. If elected or re-elected, How will you work to provide greater transparency for constituents?
Mr. Spencer, will you start that?
So I can only speak from my own experience, and I will say that I don't feel like there is a transparency problem taking place in the city. There are many, many meetings. There's a lot of things to pay attention to, and in some ways, it's on all of us to take the initiative to pay attention. There are rules about transparency. Agendas for meetings need to be posted 48 hours in advance of the meeting. By law, there are meeting agendas that are available to be seen. Northampton Open Media does an excellent job of providing videos of all of the meetings that happen in the city. I don't remember a scenario that I've been in where I have been unable to find the information that I need from asking questions, finding the right people to speak with, and then doing my own due diligence to find the answers. So I don't know where people are seeing or not seeing the transparency. I think that there can be times when this whole process can be messy, and we don't live in a perfect world. So it can sometimes feel like there hasn't been transparency, and I have had those feelings. But I do think the more you try to pay attention, the more transparent it is.
Thank you. Mr. O'Dwyer?
I think to echo what Mr. Spencer said there is an incumbency to take initiative to engage with the political process, and that's part of what inspired me to run myself. I've learned a lot just over the last couple of months since I decided to run, but I also think that we can put out as much information as we want into the world, but if we aren't doing the outreach and we aren't doing the work to get buy-in from people to inform people what's going on, that'll fall on deaf ears. As a young person, as a renter worker, I don't really have a lot of time to make council meetings. I'm busy. I think as a city councilor, I would really prioritize outreach. Well, I'd prioritize, on city council, considering the people who aren't in the room. But after those votes are taken, I would really prioritize outreach to, communities that aren't really considered, especially transient communities, grad students, renters, service workers, musicians and artists. I think that's something we need to be, making our resources known to people, not just available. And I would absolutely be for that.
Thank you. Ms. Robbins?
So this is where the strategic plan comes in. If the community is part of deciding what we want our city to look like and where we want our city to be, and we're all in on it, and that's a big job on the council to make those connections, especially in wards, then we establish a network of communication. We go to where people are. I've knocked on a lot of doors of people who have no idea what ward they're in, who their counselor is, or any of the issues that may be hot for me or you, or people who have time to look at city council videos. I can't say that I ever did that much when I was working an 80-hour-a-week job or had small children, staying on top of any of those pieces. But it is incumbent on a city government to ensure that the residents in a city agree with where we're going and that they know what's happening on our path to get there. And that's better than PR promos or putting out little newsletters. Councillor Jarrett is a stellar newsletter getter-outer in Ward 5, and it's an example that I would love to see every councillor build on, making it specific for their ward and maybe general information. Most people in this city have more than one cell phone. We go to people and we say, how do you want to be communicated with? And then we communicate.
Ms. Henson?
Oh, I love this topic, and I love this question because I think there are a couple pretty salient examples here of non-transparency. I mentioned in my opening statement that I've talked to a lot of people about Picture Main Street, and a lot of people that have had concerns about Main Street design have told me that they've reached out to the city. They want to sit down and talk to the city about the research that they've done, about what other cities and towns have done and problems that they've run into when they've tried to redesign their main streets. And there hasn't been a welcoming a response, is what I am hearing. Another example is a lack of transparency is the way the budget is done. And, you know, I'm really into this budget business because I think it's the root of many of our woes. The capital projects budget and planning is done in secret. There is no public input. It is not an open meeting laws plan. It doesn't come under open meeting laws, so there's no public input. And the capital projects budget is done early in the year, approved and funded by the city council without many questions, 15 seconds, and then the kids get the leftovers. That, to me, is not an example of transparent governing. And I agree with Meg that we need to solicit people's input.
Thank you. Mr. Perry.
Well, I think this is a good question as well, and I will also assure you that all of our meetings are recorded, and I serve on a number of boards. I'm in 5 or 6 now, and we make sure that everything is recorded. We make sure that all that information is available, and I have had to, in my work here, go back and look at some of the meeting notes and things like that. But I also want to say that I'm self-aware. You know, I come from an entertainment background, and I think publicity and putting information forward is important. And I will first readily admit that we don't always do the best job of that, myself and sometimes the city. I think, you know, we could do better at connecting with our community. I served on the select committee to study barriers to service, and one thing that came up was that people didn't know their opportunities to be involved. I think it's been really heartening to see so many youthful candidates be a part of this process, and to see people from different backgrounds come and try and be a part of our civic engagement. So I think that is going to be really important for us to go away with the myth of transparency. I think our city really does try and work to be inclusive, but as always, we can be better, and I'm always dedicating myself to try and improve upon that.
Thank you. Mr. Cronrod.
I think I echo what a lot of people have said about, right, you can't just have the information available, right? There's a component of outreach and a component of access. Like, you can have all the access, you can have the meetings recorded, the transcripts, you can have the data, the hearings, the plan, whether it's for Picture Main Street or detailed budget with all the different stabilization funds and everything. But if people don't know, like, how to access it, if we're not providing them information proactively, and that could be, I think a lot of different people have a lot of great methods, whether it's Quaverly's office hours, Alex's newsletters, or Mayor Chiara's public appearances on the radio or newspaper. Like, all of those are means of outreach, and I commend people, no matter what their opinions, like, that's important. We need all of those and more. One way of giving people access and interacting with this data and helping people understand it is, I'm going to say a very unpopular 2 words, artificial intelligence. It's a scary word. I happen to be an expert in the field in ethical, safe implementation of AI. And there are ways to utilize it to increase data access, transparency, give people a chance to ask questions about the budget, questions about past meetings, summarize proceedings. Last Thursday, there was a city council meeting from 6:30 until 11:56 p.m. I do not think it's a fair burden to put on people to sit through that to understand what went on. I think we can ethically and safely utilize technologies like AI to make all city services, data, budgets accessible, interactive, and clear for the people of Northampton.
Thank you. Next question from Jean.
Please share your thoughts on the city's bond rating and stabilization funds. What role do they play, and what is their importance to Northampton's finances?
Ms. Robbins, would you start that one?
So about that bond rating, it's terrific. We have a AAA bond rating, and we have it because we have been able to save a lot of money over a number of years, but we don't actually use it. In order to use a AAA bond rating, you have to borrow money, and there are many ways that we could actually not spend cash, especially in our capital improvement plan, by taking out loans instead, stretching out the payments, paying at lower rates, and replenishing stabilization funds where we need it. I think It's great to be able to say that. If I were a CEO of a company, I might like being able to say we have a AAA bond rating. But the stabilization funds are there because we've put money that is recurring revenue into boxes that say we can't use it for recurring expenses. And that's really a subtle and underlying conversation that this city is not having with constituents. If it's money that we receive and it's being put away and we receive more money because we have interest on it and we have needs in essential services, then the community discussion is that the right thing to do? And the timing is now to reconsider the path that we're taking. We've been told by our city auditor, the one who visits us annually, that we need to change the way that we do that and that there are some good alternatives to rethinking that. And it wouldn't mean sacrificing our AAA bond rating. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say Spencer? I'm sorry. Thank you.
So the city budget and the bond rating and our stability funds are an endlessly interesting discussion. And I am still getting up to speed on all of this as best I can. I have attended many city council meetings where the finance director has explained in great detail how the money comes in and how the money goes out and what it's used for. And I think it's very important to understand that there are funds that are indeed recurring funds that can be used for operating expenses, and that there are funds that are one-time funds. In other words, funds that aren't necessarily recurring. We can't count on them always being there the next year. And my understanding is that those are the funds that will then get put towards some of these capital improvement projects. And we also have enterprise funds for water, solid waste, sewer, stormwater, and flood control. All of these are essential parts of our municipality. We need them to work. We need to be able to fix them if something breaks, and we need the money on hand to do that. I think that this is a way to make sure that we're prepared for things that are not predictable. And I think that the money that gets spent on capital improvement projects, such as maintenance on school buildings and maintenance on our city streets and sidewalks and maintenance on our municipal buildings, there's deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed. I think we can use our bond rating to help address them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kronrad?
I think it's great that we as a city are able to have a balanced budget and a stabilization fund and dedicated stabilization funds for things like sewer, water. That is an important part of a healthy ecosystem, and we certainly don't want to have to take from the DPW or schools if we have emergencies to treat there. But I want to go back to something I said about facts and being able to align on them before we have a debate, right? In order to have a healthy debate, we have to be able to separate things like what is actually one-time additional money we made due to, say, really good interest rates and investments by the city, about $2.4 million last year, versus is there actually a chronic underestimation of revenues by the city, which would be recurring if we are chronically doing that year over year. But unless we can separate those two and agree on which one's which, we can't have a healthy discussion of how much money we could have in a recurring fashion year over year without using one-time funds for recurring expenses. Now, I believe there is some room there on both sides. On capital expenses, I'll be honest, I don't know what the big capital expense projects today are, where we did or did not utilize the bond rating, but I'm a huge proponent of if we have the bond rating, let's use it, leave more money for infrastructure, for DPW, fill those positions, fix the sidewalks, and if we need to, let's make sure we're fully funding and creating a future-ready education for our kids. But we have to agree on the facts first.
Mr. Perry?
All right, so I would also agree that our bond rating is very important. And I would like to salute our administration and our previous administrations for raising that bond rate to as high as it is now. It keeps our borrowing low. In terms of stabilization funds, I also agree is that they are part of a far-reaching plan. We have override that's always coming. It's like a glacier. You know it's on its way here. And part of our job is to make sure that we can stretch that out and be as very cautious as we can, not as cautious as we can, but be very aware that we do not push forward our overrides, because as we have talked about, the tax rates are high, people are hurting. And so it also is important to understand that our stabilization funds are not utilized for recurring things like salaries and stuff like that. You know, our capital improvement, as Mr. Spencer said, does improve the quality of the life of our citizens here, whether it's you know, improving our sidewalks, whether it's improving our school buildings. It is very important to understand that our capital projects do give back to our community. And I see that I'm running out of time. So.
Mr. O'Dwyer.
I definitely agree that having our high bond rating is very important, and it comes after many years of fixing the city's financial situation. But you know, I ask, and I echo what other candidates on the stage have said, you know, what good is a high bond rating if we're not using it? You know, as it stands right now, the city is paying for its capital improvements and other projects primarily in cash. And we could be doing something different than that. We could be leveraging our very good rates, our very high bond rating to stretch those payments out. One of the primary contentions of why I decided to get in this race was because I felt like the city was projecting too far forward in the future without meeting the current needs that we have for our residents and for our students. As to whether there is a chronic underinvestment or underestimation of revenue, I think that's something I've heard a lot about. I think that, you know, that's something that we should find. We should talk to our auditor. We should do discovery on that. But I think that, you know, we should be utilizing. The city has a very large cash reserve as it is right now. It's one of the highest in the states. And I think that the long-term damage from underinvesting in our public services, that, you know, people that are struggling to make ends meet need to have a decent quality of life, will be far longer reaching and far more damaging, as I said, than, you know, whether or not we're paying a little bit more on our loans or, you know, damaging our interest rate a little bit.
Thank you. Ms. Henson.
Thank you. Yes, I believe that we have, as Bill said, William O'Dwyer said, we have, I think it's like the 7th highest reserve fund in the state of Massachusetts. And that, when I first heard that, I thought, oh, well, I guess we're talking, per capita. No, I think it's just cash, guys. We have like a huge reserve fund, which, oh, that's great. That is great. Except that this reserve fund falls on the backs of our kids, of our sidewalks and streets. And again, I get back to the way the budget is done. To leave just the leftovers for the kids and the streets and other essential services when the capital projects seem to be the most important thing, you know, how do we do our budgets at home? Assuming we have a budget, we put the big thing, the more important thing first. Are our kids not the most important thing here? Are our streets and sidewalks not the most important? The bond rating is there, and it is possible to use that, not to deplete the stabilization fund. I don't think anybody that's advocating for more funding for schools and DPW is saying deplete the stabilization fund. But there is room. We have had free cash in the millions for the last several years. I looked back at like 6 or 8 years. It used to be about 6 million. Now it's 12, 11, and another 10. That is under budgeting, systematic under budgeting.
Thank you. Next question from Alexander.
Thank you. We've heard a little bit already about the Picture Main Street project. It's currently estimated to start next year and is set to dramatically remake the city's downtown. A lot of businesses have expressed concerns on how this project will affect their bottom line. How would you go about supporting businesses during the Picture Main Street project?
Mr. Kronrod, would you start, please?
I've really enjoyed going around downtown and talking to a ton of the business owners. You can't talk about what you're going to do unless you understand the needs of the people affected. And while we're all affected, it's creating better sidewalks, more accessibility, just a more human-centric downtown. It's going to fix infrastructure. Those businesses are the heart of our economy. A lot of them are very concerned by things like the parking, right? It's not just temporary restrictions during construction. It's about 57 missing spots afterwards. They're concerned about access. They're concerned about loss of revenue, and they're concerned that they'll go out of business like many did during the pandemic. I think we need to do everything in our power. First, I should say, the Picture Main Street project is moving forward. And I invite everyone, independent of what your views were on how we got there and the conversations, and even if you don't think you were heard enough, and I know a lot of people really feel that way, like, let's dedicate our energy to supporting the businesses in the community through this, ensuring that we do the hard work. We need a liaison officer to work with the businesses. Maybe we even recruit volunteers to help, like, people understand how to get to the businesses. I would invite the city to look into making parking free downtown. I think ticketing people who are here to do business is a perverse incentive for a city like ours. And I think we do everything in our power to support the businesses through it and make sure they make it through, and then they thrive on the other side. Marketing campaign, shop local campaign, do everything in our power to support them through it.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer.
So the Picture Main Street project is a project that is long overdue for the city of Northampton. And it is three things. It is a safety improvement project, it is an economic development project, and it is an accessibility and equity project. This is a project that we deserve. Our Main Street is a holdover from a bygone age. And we are going to take what is now a unsafe and unproductive Main Street and turn it into something we can be proud of. The street is really a jewel. The buildings, the businesses, everything on it. And Picture Main Street is going to make it all the more attractive. It's going to make downtown safer for every user. It's going to give every user a place. And it's going to create an enormous amount of economic development for our city. There was recently an article in the Gazette about East Hampton's Cottage Street, and it talked about their boardwalk and what an attractive component that is that's brought business to their town. Imagine that boardwalk running up and down both sides of Main Street in Northampton. That is precisely what we're going to be doing. There's going to be furniture and places for people to gather. There's going to be twice as many shade trees. There's going to be it'll be great.
Ms. Robbins.
So I've been working with Save Paradise City for the last year, and I've learned a lot more about Picture Main Street than I ever wanted to. One of the things I've learned is that we actually don't have the funding for it right now. This year, the $16 million that was allocated towards that FY25 construction was clawed back and was distributed to other communities. I can see the mayor shaking her head. I was at a meeting that she was also at. The $16 million was distributed to other communities. Whether or not we will get additional funding is uncertain in these uncertain times. I've also talked to lots of business owners downtown, and their estimation is that for every year of construction of Picture Main Street, we will lose 35% of our businesses. You do the math over a course of 3 years. These are people who survived COVID by taking out second mortgages on their own homes and big loans that they have not yet paid off because actually business has not picked up the way that they had hoped to. We've had cornerstone stores leave. We've had small shops come back. A lot of our community doesn't shop downtown. It's visitors, it's tourists. If that's the picture that our city wants to have, then that's a picture that we should all be part of a conversation in creating. But thus far, it's one that we're just left with, a sort of Disney World vision on what the future might be. And that's not working well for many constituents in this city.
Please hold your applause. Thank you. Mr. Perry.
Well, if anyone knows me, they know that I have worked most of my life downtown, and it holds a dear part in my heart. I was part of the team that reopened the Iron Horse. I spend a lot of my time working in the restaurants and places. And so what I tell folks often is that, even outside of Picture Main Street, our nightlife, our downtown is in need of help and reimagining. I feel that personally, I've worked with the DNA. I've worked with other businesses. I've been attending their business forums that happen once a month and seeing how our businesses are coming together. I think that it's very important to also not just look at Northampton by itself. We're part of a larger community. I've been really working to think regionally. I've worked in Springfield recently and Holyoke. There's ways to bring people to our city and support our businesses. There's coming up what they're calling the October Great Northampton Haunt, where we're activating our streets and doing a lot of work to try and navigate through this. I also want to salute, there is a group called POP, Pardon Our Progress, who are working on ways to get the word out that our streets will still be open during this transition. And I think on the other side, we're going to see what it really looks like to re-envision and reimagine what downtown Northampton is. And finally, I'll say that I think events are what are really going to get us there. I come from an event background, and the more things we can do bringing people into our city, making sure that we're walking around and utilizing the streets is going to really help keep those businesses going. So,
Thank you. Mr. O'Dwyer.
So I live downtown, and honestly, I have a very ambivalent opinion about Picture Main Street, but aside from my opinion, if Picture Main Street does go forward, I think that we've got two things to consider, which is the situation that our small businesses have gone through over the last couple of years, especially since the pandemic. I think that they're in a weak position, with rising commercial rents, with long-term vacancies downtown that have kind of driven down foot traffic, made it a less attractive place to be. I think that the city should have been more proactive earlier in intervening to support those businesses, whether that was through grants, through establishing, a negative incentive for vacancy, like a vacancy registry. And those are policies I'd like to see go ahead, whether or not Picture Main Street happens. And I think, we should consider granting funds to businesses to help them stay afloat. And generally just decreasing the cost of operation. It's a lot of them have very thin margins. I might be a socialist, but I recognize that. I also think, as Meg Robbins pointed out, that it's an accessibility issue. I think that if we are going to deprioritize cars downtown, I think it needs to come in concert with a greater investment in our transit system. I was talking to an elderly voter in Ward 1, and I said, well, we do have the transit system, and I'd like to see more of that. And he responded to me very quickly, so it's not very much of a transit system. And I think that that's something we need to be really considered about, increasing frequency, increasing accessibility, and mobility for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hanson.
Well, I served as a board of directors on the Downtown Northampton Associations from 2019 until just this January. And I'm very familiar with how the businesses are concerned about the possibility, I will say, of Picture Main Street, because I don't think it is necessarily going to happen. That might be an outlier view. But I do think that we need to do a trial run. If this plan is as great as it's supposed to be, let's show it. Let's do a trial run. Save Paradise has tried pushing for a trial run because they have some serious concerns about accessibility, about people getting from their cars, if they are wheelchair bound, particularly trying to open the doors, the e-bikes flying through the bike lane, and them trying to get over whatever curbing there is to get to the sidewalk. It doesn't sound accessible to me. And I'm not in a wheelchair, but I listen to the experts who are. I also think that the trial run would be helpful because we would know then, in terms of the businesses, how things, even if we just took a block and did a trial run, I don't know that would be enough to show the safety issues, but the businesses are completely freaked out. They're trying to make the best of it. Yes, there's a business forum. I got that business forum started with the executive director a year and a half to 2 years ago. But they are very concerned because of the loss, as Meg said, 35%. I'll stop talking. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question from Jean.
I tell you, sorting these questions is really hard. They're all really good. I'm going to go with this one, and it's multi-question, but they all fit together. Should the charter be revisited again Does the mayor have too much power? Should power be returned to the city council? What are your views?
What was the last thing you said?
I'll repeat that. Should the charter be revisited again? Does the mayor have too much power? Should power be returned to the city council? And what are your views?
Okay, Mr. O'Dwyer, would you please start?
Sorry. The simple answer is yes. I think the charter should be revisited. I think that the mayor's power should be reduced. I think that if the city council is going to act as a real check, a real legislative system for the city, it has to have a role in forming the budget that isn't just advisory, but is actually, not just reducing, but really, determining what is going to be in that budget. And I'd like to see that, I think that should be the priority of charter reform. I think that it's good that our executive is elected in the city, but we have a city council for a reason. And I think this goes back to an earlier question about the civility discourse and how angry people are. I think that a lot of that anger is coming from an inability, or feel like people lack power. They lack a voice. They feel like their representatives lack a voice to make a difference. Budgets come out and they might seem like a fait accompli for people. And I think that would go a long way to reducing that anger and also making the city council a site of a more robust political life. We can have a stronger conversation, include more people, include more constituents, and really hear from all the different interests in the city, not just the mayor's office and their projections.
Thank you. Ms. Hanson?
Yes. I definitely think there needs to be charter reform. I believe that that, as Bill said, having power in this, and I know it's the strong mayor, the way things have been, and that's the way the charter was written. But having a strong mayor shouldn't mean we have a weak city council, and that's what's happened. The council, if you followed it recent 3 months ago, they wouldn't even vote to take their power with the opt-in. The majority did not opt in. And if you don't know what opt-in is, when the mayor presents the budget, the city council, without the opt-in procedure, can only delete or lower a line item. The city council cannot increase a line item. So this became really a big issue with the school funding, because the school committee recommended so much money, and then the mayor ended up with a budget that was much less than that, and the city council basically gave up its power to do anything about it. And I don't understand that. My goal would be to empower the city council, not just to have a power war, but to have the power of the people. What do we want power for? That's to bring your voices to the table. What does the majority want? And power to the city council, we have to have a check and balance. I mean, otherwise, why do we have a city council? Let's just elect a mayor and we all go home.
Thank you. Mr. Perry?
Sorry to reach over you, Will. And so I also agree that our charter should be reviewed. There's mechanisms for that, much like we have a mechanism to review our ordinances every certain year. So I do agree with that. I don't believe that there's too much power vested in either body. I do believe that there are checks and balances. And I personally feel we are empowered. I said before that the strongest thing about the city council is it's 9 people working together, or at least that is the way it should be. Combined, if you reach across the aisle with people that you have disagreements with, you can find power in that if we can stand together. If one person is screaming at the heavens, come, talk, convince folks. I think that I've had the access and the ability to go to department heads, to work with our staff, to also work with counselors to get things done. And I'm a person who doesn't bite his tongue. It's sometimes hard to even control my face when I disagree with things. And something that I know is that if I see something wrong, I will stand up and say for it. There are many examples where I did not agree with some decisions that other counselors made, or with what the mayor said, and I spoke up for those things. For instance, when we were talking about mini-year appropriations, I have an impassioned speech about wanting to give as much as we could to our schools and also to do the work. And I think the work is coming together, working not only just with the mayor, but with our departments and the other staff, the people that make our city run. And that is where our true empowerment comes from on our city council.
Thank you. Mr. Kronwald?
I mean, yes, we should be able to revisit the charter. We have amendments to the Constitution. This is something you revisit in a healthy democracy and ask the question of, is this working for us? I don't think that should be up to me or the council. I think if we do that, that should be up to the people of Northampton. And if people feel this isn't the system that's representing their needs, their voices, and they don't feel heard, and that it's not giving council the power to speak for them and make the changes they desire, then yeah, it should of course be on the table. Having said that, we need to be careful with doing that, right? We have to be, do you want to change it? Do you want to modify it? Do you want to make small changes like the ability to opt in, giving the council more say in certain things? The council also has a lot of soft power to call hearings, to discuss, and working collaboratively with the mayor. As someone in tech, I will say it does sometimes help to have a decision maker who can make a strong decision at the end of the day after a debate. I've seen, analysis paralysis many times, and it's all about collaboratively working together. I do think the wisdom of 9 people will usually trump the decision of 1, but I think if you work together really well, it doesn't have to be animosity. I think it's possible, but we should revisit it. We should hear from all of you, and if we need to, we will do that.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer?
So my understanding is that the charter will be reviewed in 2029. I think it gets reviewed on the 9s. So that's something we can all look forward to. And I would say that I have an example of the power of city council that I was involved in personally, and this is something that I really think is an excellent example of it. There is such a thing as a citizen's petition to change zoning, and citizens can petition the city council to look at zoning and make a change, and that is a process that I undertook with several other residents of the city. This was in regards to the Gateway District and whether or not auto dealerships should be allowed in the Gateway District on Pleasant Street and King Street. And it was a fascinating process. It went from the city council to legislative matters and planning board joint meeting. They took a look at it, had a discussion. They referred their decisions back to the full city council. The planning board referred a negative recommendation. The legislative matters referred a neutral recommendation and went back to the full city council for more conversation. The end result was that the city council unanimously decided that this zoning change made sense. And I would give you that as an example of citizen engagement with a city council that listened and then made a decision, and that decision will result in an improvement in the way our city gets built out on both Pleasant Street and King Street.
Thank you. Ms. Robbins?
I absolutely would love to see us abandon a strong mayor charter. I don't think most of us knew it was happening. It was a committee that was formed and decided in 2019 that really changed the dominant power structure in how decisions are made in our city. The mayor is in charge of the budget. She's the final person who says yes or no. The mayor is the chair of the school committee, a voting member of the school committee who brings the budget ceiling to the school committee and says, here's how much money you have to spend, which is really sort of the backwards way of approaching that budgeting, which is dependent on people who are experts to determine how much our schools need. The mayor is in charge of all the departments, or most of them, supervising the departments, and we have a lot of them. That's a very difficult job. The mayor is in charge of vetting appointments she sends to committees, to the service committee to appoint to committees, and therefore has a certain amount of leverage and control in who actually serves on committees that are decision makers. And I think we've recently had a very different experience than Mr. Spencer has had with citizens of Phillips Place coming to a citizen's petition to City Council on behalf of their community and a building that's going to be erected there, where they received a negative determination by City Council, and they were also told that it really wasn't relevant to those decisions. And they left feeling as though they hadn't been heard. It was not a responsive discussion, and there wasn't really a forum for being able to say, how can we do it better?
Thank you. So we'll move on to our closing statements, 1 minute each. Ms. Henson, would you go first?
We've had some excellent questions posed tonight. I'm heartened by the active engagement of the residents in Northampton. Much of what we've discussed comes down to how the city chooses to budget. At least that's my thing. First, capital projects are developed with no public input, then approved and funded by City Council, no questions asked. What's left over is allocated for essential services, including the public schools. But our kids deserve more than the leftovers. This is an upside-down way to create the city budget, and not the way many cities and towns operate. If you're interested in diving more deeply into alternative ways to finance essential needs in this city, please come to my gathering on the budget tomorrow night, 5:30 at the Florence Civic Center, one of 4 such gatherings I've sponsored with many attending. People want to be heard. That is how I intend to govern, if elected, seeking your voices and priorities and taking them to the council for a transparent process, not hidden from you. You should have a say in how your tax dollars are spent. I ask for your vote in the preliminary election, September 16th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Dwyer?
I'd also like to thank the organizers of this event for the opportunity to speak and my fellow candidates for both running and for coming here tonight. I'm running to be a counselor for every resident, for renters burdened by high rents, homeowners that are struggling to make ends meet every month, for the seniors who built this city and the students who are going to inherit it, for the workers who make our city run and the teachers who make our future possible. I believe that the city government should be meeting the needs that present themselves now, understaffing in our public services, falling apart infrastructure. And I think that by lowering the cost of living, supporting public transit, funding our services, defending communities under threat by the administration we currently have in office, we can make Northampton a city that works for all of us, and gives all of us a decent quality of life. This is the movement we're building together, and that's why I'm asking for your vote for at-large City Council on September 16th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kronwad?
I believe in kindness, collaborative leadership, inclusive governance, and positive intent in others. And I have the experience fit for the task at hand for Northampton today. As a former public school teacher, I understand education systems and funding. Having taught and advocated for grad students and adjuncts at the University of Maryland, I know how to work with the Smith administration. As someone who used to be a small business owner, I understand the needs of small businesses that power our economy. And as a community organizer, an avid supporter of the immigrant and LGBTQ+ population communities, and an emotional intelligence facilitator, I know how to work with the most vulnerable populations with kindness, understanding, and true partnership. I'm willing to do the hard work to understand the needs of all residents and advocate for them, and stand up to power when the time comes. I am ready to lead on day one, and no matter who else you support for City Council, I'm telling you, you want me on the team. I'm ready to go to work for you and solve problems today and in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Robbins?
I want to say thank you to everybody who's organized this great evening and last evening. It's a wonderful opportunity for our community. Communication is key. If we don't know where we're going, how can we possibly get there? These are tough times. History tells us that what we are witnessing in Washington is terrifyingly akin to terrible times we have witnessed before, but there's no precedent for now. We need to be proactive, we need to hunker down, we need to listen, and we need to learn. We need to trust that we share the same values and priorities. We need to know that our children and our part of the planet are prepared for a future we do our best to protect. We need to safeguard our vulnerable and make our city home to all who want to be here. I'm delighted at the number of young people stepping up to run for office this year. Electing me now with my professional skill set, my experience in city government, and my 50+ years as an attentive city resident to be part of a diverse council that reflects voices across Northampton sets the stage towards building an independent council that renews our confidence in the way things work. Thank you for your trust in letting me represent you in 2026. I will do my best to earn it.
Mr. Perry?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Well, I just want to say that tomorrow isn't promised, and that's why I work so hard today. I'm sure if I waited till I retired or my kids moved out or I hit the lotto, can work less, this job would be easier for me. But now is the time I feel my skills can best be utilized. As we navigate shifts in national and global politics, as we struggle to raise our current youth, as we invite future generations and businesses to become a part of the fabric of Northampton, as we prepare for climate change, as we reimagine policing and redesign our Main Street, I feel the urge to keep using my skill sets to work with my colleagues, our City Hall, and our community, continue making Northampton one of the best places to live. And here is what I believe I bring to the table: a deep history of building teams and managing diverse people, creating welcoming community spaces, a record of speaking up for workers, a commitment to always take into account various perspectives, and understanding that change takes time, the realization you can't please everyone, along with the temperament to handle that burden. I'm still humbled and thankful for your consideration to use one of your votes for Councilor at Large and re-elect me, Garrick Perry, to continue doing this work.
Thank you. And Mr. Spencer.
So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I think it's wonderful to be together in person. It's something that I really feel is important and that we all need to get back to. It's time to get offline and be together in community. So thank you all for being here. I want to help the City of Northampton live up to our full potential. This means planning for both the present and the future at the same time. Like every other city and town, Northampton has to balance the needs of our community with the realities of our budget. We can make our city services, schools, streets, and sidewalks even better only through working together. I want to help people understand how the city is striving to make Northampton a place where everyone is safe and welcome. I want to be a clear choice for Councilor at Large in the next election. I will be there to listen to constituents, look for answers, and provide assistance. With a long track record of being engaged, collaborative, and outspoken, I am demonstrating a willingness and capacity to successfully advocate for the residents of our city. I would ask for one of your two votes for Councilor at Large in the upcoming elections. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give a warm.
Thank you.
We'll take a 10-minute break. We will start again very promptly at 8:12. Please check out the table at the back. we'll start again in 2 minutes. Could you please find your way back to your seats? Okay, shall we get started, please? Thank you again for joining us this evening. As before, I ask you please to silence your phones and put them away until the end of the forum. And if you have a question for the mayor, candidates for mayor, please write them on a notepad and pass it to the aisle, and somebody will pick them up at the end of the aisle. Thank you. Let's see. So we have before us now 4 candidates for mayor of Northampton. And again, we will begin with 2-minute opening statements from the candidates, and then questions from our 2 panelists, Alexander McDougall of the Hampshire Gazette and Jean Sherdock from the League. 90-second answers, and conclude with some 1-minute closing statements. Please hold your applause until the end. This is the time for the candidates, and so let's give them our attention. In reverse ballot order, we'll take the opening statements, so we will start with Ms. Duclos.
Thank you so much. Hi, Northampton. I'm Jillian Duclos. I want to say thank you so much to the League of Women Voters, Northampton area, for putting this on, for Northampton Open Media for streaming live. I actually streamed live last night from home. I have a 4-year-old, so I put him to bed in the middle of it. A lot of what I hear that people are wondering is why I am here running for mayor. I am here to share a little bit with you about who I am. I was born I'm going to be a little vulnerable here, but I was born to a mother who is an addict. I used to get dropped off at places next door that people didn't even know who I was, and brought back home. I raised my brother. I decided I wanted a different kind of life for myself as I grew up in that kind of setting. I left home at 17. I've been paying rent since then. I got my first job, actually in high school, working for Friendly's. That's where I learned all my, foundational operational skills to set me up, for the future. Once I left, I started working for Holyoke Credit Union, and I really hit the ground running there. I started to, and then I started at Sylvester's Restaurant, where I really got my footing, and I went to school. And now doing this work, I really want to make sure that there are not people who have to go through what I went through to get to where I am. So I want to create that kind of life here in Northampton. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dombrowski.
Yeah. I'm Dave Dombrowski, the one with the plan. I'm an independent candidate. I'm a native of Northampton. I was raised by my mom and dad. At age 13, I was shot and brought back to life. I decided then not to waste my life. I graduated from Smith Vocational High School, then worked in my trade. Years later, becoming a police officer. After serving Northampton 20 years, I retired honorably. I've raised a son from a marriage. Ask yourself, are you and the city better off now than you were 4 years ago? I say no. I'm running for the office of mayor, and this is why. To stop skyrocketing real estate taxes, water, sewer bills, and overrides, to stop declining enrollment in our schools, bring back public services, attract mom and pop businesses to the city, to have a citywide plan starting today, and a blueprint for the direction of the city's future. The blueprint is mixed-use development. This is a proven, organized method to develop a strong tax base, yet be able to afford to live here. It's not going to be easy, but nothing worthwhile is ever easy. The goal is a diversified, sustainable tax base that can support all city services adequately, so schools can be fully funded, roads can be maintained year-round, and so much more. There are so many opportunities not being utilized, there's no reason for it. Traditional building is expensive. It will not bring the cost down to purchase or rent, so what's the answer? A fabrication line. Our residents, our talent equal jobs. This type of building can reduce costs by 33 to 66%, I'm told, and expedite project times. Low-rise, high-rise buildings are being built using this method. This is something to be considered for Northampton to move it forward. For renters, 3 letters, ADU. Accessory dwelling unit will bring pricing competition to rental markets if done correctly.
Mr. Dombrowski, your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Shara.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for supporting local democracy. I fell in love with Northampton 35 years ago when I first visited Smith College. Then 20 years ago, I came back with my partner to make Northampton our home. Northampton gave us the greatest community we could ever hope for, and ever since then, I've looked for ways to give back. For example, in 2007, the sanctuary ceiling in First Churches collapsed. I was asked to lead a $2 million capital campaign to restore this essential community space and living history. In 2013, my city councilor said she wasn't running again and asked if I would. I'd never considered running for office before, but I thought it could be a way that I could serve Northampton while I was raising my young children. I ended up on the council for 8 years, unanimously elected as council president in my final term, before being chosen by Northampton voters as your mayor. During my first term, we did the hard work of taking care of each other in difficult times. We launched the Division of Community Care, providing unarmed support to nearly 1,300 individuals in need. We supported the creation of 282 new units of affordable housing. We added 8 firefighter positions and 1 dispatcher position to address increases in emergency calls. We helped the Iron Horse reopen with an ARPA grant supporting accessibility. We advanced Picture Main Street, which will leverage $26 million in state transportation funding to improve downtown safety and accessibility, and will replace century-old underground infrastructure and double our tree canopy. And we established the Climate Action and Project Administration Department, which is already reducing our carbon emissions and has reduced energy use in school and city buildings by about 20%. We increased funding for roads and sidewalks with the next round of paving projects happening now. And we increased annual funding for the Northampton Public Schools by 32%. Our schools still face challenges, but we have continually stretched the budget to give them every dollar we can responsibly and sustainably give, and I will continue to do so. So thank you for doing this work with me, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. And Mr. Brindell.
Hi, my name is Dan Brindell. I'm not a career politician. I was not planning on running a year ago or 6 months ago. I'm here today because I love this city. I love so much about the city. It's why I chose to start a life here, raise my kids here, and I think I share that with a lot of you. A lot of people I talk to on the campaign trail tell me that as well. Things that we love about this city are affordable rents, our beautiful historic downtown, our very old architecture and buildings, our beautiful green spaces, trees, and nature. That's what makes us unique. I believe we are on the precipice of losing a lot of that. I think in order to bring rents down, we are on a strategy right now of building high density with no regulation that we already see skyrocketing rents that are tied to market rate. We are about to see tremendous amounts of evictions in people that depend on affordable and fair market housing. Our Main Street, I assure you, and we will talk more about this later, untested plan for our Main Street that we are going to tear up this place that we love. If you go to Forbes and you go to the Calvin Coolidge Museum, you can see Main Street, and the only change in 100 years is the trolley, which I would bring back, possibly. So, you know, that's an asset. I want people to understand that that is an asset. That is what makes this place valuable. That is what brings people here, and that is what makes our quality of life so high. And I believe that our government is going on a path right now to unmake so much of that. And that's why I'm here. Because in June, there was nobody running for this office that was willing to say that. The people of this town are amazing. It's time that we have a government that works for them and with them. I want to work for you and with you, and that is why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. The first question will come from Alexander.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. The city's budget for this fiscal year was $145 million, meaning that if elected or re-elected, you would effectively become the CEO of a $145 million enterprise. Can you describe in your own words your preferred leadership style, your approach to problem solving, and your method for achieving consensus?
Mr. Dombrowski, would you start, please?
Sure. Well, I would have open communication with City Hall. I would definitely want input from the citizens, so we have a well-rounded group of individuals to have the input to make the right decision for what the city actually wants. And right now, that seems like it's a hard thing to do. I mean, there's so many avenues where you get a little bit here, a little bit there. There doesn't seem to be a very centralized location for information. And this is just one of the things I would change. There are so many issues and problems that need to be looked at, reviewed by all of us, and, you know, sit down and work the problem out, see what works best for the city, and just move forward with that solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duclos.
Yes, $145 million. I think the first thing that I would really like to look at is how we prioritize our budget process. I believe that we should be putting our operational expenses ahead of our capital projects. I think those should be voted on first. I think we need to prioritize our essential services. I think this is ultimately important because as we are facing the things that are going on around us and things are shifting and changing, that is where our power lies, in the city services that we hold, in our tax revenue and what we bring in that is ours. It is so important to be investing in things that we can control and that we know that we can take care of. That is our students, those should come first. Our public education system, you know, is really, you know, we've hit a ceiling. This is not just happening here in Northampton, it's happening in the surrounding communities. And we really need to be prioritizing the people who live here and making those investments. That is where our power lies, and we don't want to lose that. And my style, I want to look at participatory budgeting. I think people should be a part of those decisions that are being made because it is their money. We work for you, and that's what I look forward to. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brindell.
Yeah, well, first off, with all due respect, Alex, I disagree with the basic premise that the mayor is the CEO of this city. I don't think this city is a company. I think this city is a big group of people, and I think the mayor is somebody who is empowered to help you guys more than possibly anybody else. But I also think the city council is incredibly empowered by the charter. We just, in the last hearing, talked about charter reform in order to empower the legislature. If you look at the charter, it's very clear. The city council holds all legislative power. That's not how we currently operate this city. I would not write legislation. I would not have City Hall write legislation. I would not have my planning department write legislation. Legislation should come from the bottom up, from the people through the council to my desk so that I can sign it and enforce it. Because what my job would be as the mayor is to enforce your rights, is to protect everything that the laws that have already been written are there to protect. There are great tenants' rights on the books. There are great environmental rights on the books. There is really good affordability controls within our zoning. And so much of that ceases to exist when we have a government, and especially an executive, that isn't interested in enforcing that or protecting that. And that would be my central focus. Let's get it back from the ground up. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Scherer.
So, cities are people. They are run by people, and they are here to serve people. My management style is very hands-on and supportive of the team of hardworking people who keep the city running. These are folks who are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and truly often answer calls in the middle of the night. I think it's really important to support your staff and to be a good leader in that way. If you don't work well with the people who are responsible for the people of Northampton, they're not going to do the work that you need them to do. So I work very hard to support my staff. I meet one-on-one with most department heads at least once a month. I've instituted other regular meetings for us to get together to talk on different topics. And it's really been the greatest joy and privilege of this work to be able to work with the people who serve Northampton. They're remarkable, and they work very hard for you. And I ask that you give them love whenever you can. I also, the rest of my approach is I'm unabashedly progressive in my support of those most vulnerable in our community. And I also believe in responsive management of city resources and our finances, which include maintaining reserves and investing in our infrastructure. And my fiscal approach has proved to be effective and beneficial. And so I would say that's kind of encompasses sort of my leadership style.
Thank you. Next question will come from Jean.
Thank you. This is a question that I got from many people, so I try to kind of put it all together. So the state found Northampton routinely violates IEPs. What is your reaction to this DESE report about the problems in our schools, and how will you make sure disabled students can access education?
Mr. Brindell, will you start?
So something that I'm actually really, really proud of in this campaign, and again, I got into it pretty late, is I have found a lot of parents of disabled children have been very supportive of me. And I think a lot of that is because they don't feel as if the city has been very supportive of them. We're actively breaking the law. I got one right there. We're actively breaking the law. And we are actively breaking the law to make our most vulnerable children in our public schools suffer, and suffer in a way that will have them fall lower and lower and lower. We have, I believe it's 8th graders that can't actually read at the reading level. We're not doing enough for our schools. And so to go back to the CEO point, I mean, the one thing that I would do is funding, Jillian's right, the budget's upside down, the priorities are upside down. We vote in January on capital projects to the tune of $15.7 million, and then we fight over a little austerity operational budget in June. I would never do that. The things in that operational budget, and especially education, roads and sidewalks, cleaning up the snow and the ice, these things are top #1 priorities. Our fire department has been underfunded for many, many years, and even the police feel as if they're doing more than they can actually handle. We need to do a better job of funding basics in this city before we move on to these big buys. And right now, we're doing such a bad job of it, we are actively breaking the law.
Please hold your applause, thank you. Mr. Dombrowski.
You said IEP? Okay, IEPs. So a student gets put aside and requests to be put in an IEP. What happens? What's the teacher do? Are they qualified to do whatever they're supposed to be doing? How, from my experience and from what I've heard, it's just a slowdown of work. How is that a benefit to the kid? They don't even know what the real issue is. In order to know what the real issue would be for that particular child, you would have to test that child to see where they're at in all areas of education. So I don't see that being done. I have firsthand experience with this issue, and it's really kind of a joke, honestly, that the kids are being educated under an IEP when they're not. I mean, there's many areas, so there's no excuse, there's no answer to it. I've spoken with many teachers in many cities, and it's always the same, which is nothing. Nothing gets done. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shera?
So, of course, we need to follow IEPs. I know how worrisome it is for caregivers and how hard it is and how hard they have to advocate for their kids and their needs. This is why I brought forward additional funding for special education with the Special Education Stabilization Fund to be able to direct more funds to the Northampton Public Schools specifically for special education. The mayor is one member of the school committee. There are 9 other members. Me, as the mayor, and my other colleagues on the school committee, along with the superintendent, are really going to have to work harder and collaboratively to make sure that we are allocating our resources in a way that ensures that we meet all the needs and that we are meeting IEPs. Those are obligations that we must meet, and we have a moral obligation to meet them, so we need to work together to do that. And the state needs to help districts more with circuit breaker and other funding. Districts all over are struggling with increased costs, and the state has to adjust their funding formulas. Our Chapter 70 state aid only accounts for 16% of our actual net school spending. In 1993, when ed reform passed, it was 33%. So the state has to step up and start funding our schools better.
Thank you. Ms. DeClose?
So first I want to say, as the mom of a 4-year-old, that is actually very heartbreaking. I mean, I think back to all the conversations I've been having on doors, and when we are talking about school funding, I hear a lot that the city knew 3 years ago that this was going to happen. I mean, we had funding that we knew was going to run out and that it was going to lead to this crisis that we are all talking about. When I first started to understand what was going on with school funding, I reached out to a colleague, Mayor Garcia in Holyoke, because I really wanted to understand what was happening. And he had shared with me that their superintendent in Holyoke actually planned for that they integrated that funding into their budget in a way that when it ran out, that they didn't have a crisis like this. And this is back to operations and management, and that is what my background is, working for restaurants, really understanding budgetary constraints and planning for the future. And what happened was we did not plan, and then when this happened, we put the burden on administrators, we put it on teachers, and we put it on students. And that is not the role of local government. The role of local government is to remove the burden so that people can have a strong foundation to live here, and so that when they invest in their community, that their community is investing back, and that means taking care of our most vulnerable children. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexander? See, did we do I think everybody answered that question.
Okay. Okay, so the city has passed resolutions declaring itself a sanctuary city, both for undocumented migrants and for transgender and gender diverse individuals. This would limit local law enforcement from assisting federal actions that would target these groups. Given ongoing actions at the federal level right now, do you support the continuation of these resolutions? And if so, what steps would you take to ensure that these resolutions are maintained?
Ms. Shara, would you start with that, please?
Sure. So the city has a standing Safe City Executive Policy Order that prohibits the Northampton Police Department from honoring detainer requests without a judicial warrant, which is the same as the state law. And it also has a Safe City Ordinance that I co-sponsored when I was a city councilor that prohibits city resources from being used to determine or act on a immigration status. So. And also no resources can be used in the performance of the functions of an immigration officer. So we do not ask or collect immigration status. Federal immigration policy is outside of the authority of local law enforcement, and we will not do the jobs of federal immigration officials. And we will not grant entry to non-public space in a municipal building without a verified judicial warrant. For months, the city and the 2 school districts, we have 2 school districts here, have been in contact and working with local organizations and legal experts who work directly with and support the immigrant community. And we've been working together to share information and provide support. What we're seeing is a profound breakdown of our democracy and human rights, and it's brutal and unconscionable. Additionally, in November, I issued an executive policy order directing city employees to protect and defend transgender, gender diverse, and reproductive rights, and protect from the disclosure of identifiable medical records, because we know that there are also people coming to this area seeking care.
Ms. Duclos.
Yes, of course. Of course, I support protecting the people who are part of this community. I think part of it is really being able to educate the community on what their rights are. I think that's a big part of ensuring safety and understanding and that we're all on the same page. I don't see a lot of direct communication from City Hall to constituents or to the city about what is ahead of us, what is happening in real time, and how we can understand what is happening in real time so we can protect each other. There are other things, and when I talk about what's happening around us and how we can protect ourselves by investing in our foundations and investing in our essential services and what is ours, I think all the time what it would be like if we were really funding our schools in a real way, if we were able to take that investment and we could use that, and the federal government turned around and say, hey, we're gonna remove education funding, you know, if you don't comply with ICE and our immigration standards. And we said, hey, you know, we actually got that. We take care of our own, and we we will continue to take care of our community in that way. And you can't push us up against the wall with that kind of threat. We take care of our people here in Northampton, and I will lead the way on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dombrowski.
Could you repeat the question, Alex?
Yes, the city has passed resolutions regarding becoming a sanctuary city for both undocumented migrants and transgender and gender diverse individuals. Given the current actions at the federal level regarding these issues, do you continue to support these resolutions? And if so, what steps will you take to make sure that they are maintained?
Well, I believe everybody should follow the law. If it's breaking a law, then it should be rectified. So if the ICE or federal government comes here and people are breaking the law, well, I mean, I guess they have to face the consequences. Just like anybody here, if you were to break the law, or if I was to break the law, we have to face the consequences. So that's basically my answer. I mean, you got to follow the law.
Mr. Brindell.
So I take this very seriously. I'm half Jewish, which means that I know that sometimes the law and following the law is not necessarily the right thing to do. And what we need to do is protect, no, it's okay. We need to protect our people, right? That's what we do. The people that work here, the people that live here, the people that are just passing through. I know that we hold ourselves up as a sanctuary city, just like we hold ourselves up as progressive in many different ways, but I also know that we don't always live up to that. I know that there was a gentleman that was pulled over for a traffic stop on Pleasant Street with a newborn child that is now in New Hampshire in an ICE facility, and that's in our city. So we could be doing a better job of living up to our morals and our values, which I think the vast majority of us do hold, and we talk about them a lot, and we go to the council and speak about them and say, why aren't we living up to our values? We do need to do a better job of living up to our values. In terms of protecting people from other countries or people in marginal groups in our schools, on our streets, and in our city, the idea to me of these people having to battle the federal government, this federal government, but even a federal government that I agree with more, that to me feels unconscionable. I will battle the government as the mayor. Your city will battle the government on your behalf. You shouldn't be alone to battle our federal government that is trying to put you in a camp or reject services or aid or any other kind of thing. That shouldn't fall to you. That should fall to us as a community. And I would be happy to lead that community to where we should be. Thank you.
Next question from Jean, please.
Okay, I have a question here from a future voter. As a student at JFK, we often have to fundraise. We often have fundraisers, have to pay for things, et cetera. How would you help our schools and our students with funding? Thanks.
Ms. Duclos.
I love that question. You know, I talk a lot about education and a lot about funding schools. It is my #1 priority in this race and what I'm looking at moving forward. I think back to my time in education, and I'm the product of public schools, and I'm trying to think back if I was ever raising money for school or for school supplies. I don't think I was. I think I was, you know, maybe raising money for my softball team, you know, and I think that's something we need to look at here too. I've heard on the doors that, you know, we really need to bring back you know, our sports and, you know, our opportunities for young people to have activities in school and outside of school. But I think the way to do it is to back to operational budgets versus capital budgets, fund operational budgets first. And I think that, you know, we really need to go to parents and teachers and administrators and students and really understand what the needs are and make sure that the way that we are funding schools is what schools actually need so that you're not actually fundraising outside of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dombrowski?
Are they selling cookies or raising for some sort of sport, or doesn't say?
He doesn't say. I just read what they wrote.
Sure. Well, I mean, I guess the most common sense thing would be to be able to fund our schools. I mean, if they're selling cookies, I would say everybody buy some cookies. If they're looking for equipment for the field, playing a sport, I would say that part of that or all of that should come from the city. I mean, I know a lot of it comes from the parents nowadays, but I just don't think that at every turn the parents are pulling money out of their pocket for this and that for the schools. I mean, the schools have to take care of the kids and their activities. So depends on the circumstance, but in general, I would think that the budget should cover that. Thank you.
Mr. Brindell?
Yeah, so I think we should be fully funding our schools. I think you know, obviously you have to turn the budget upside down, you have to think about our priorities, you have to just fund to the level that the school committee asks at least. But it's even beyond that. We have a mayor that set aside something like $6.5 million in a surplus. That's how much we went over from what we estimated. The schools are about $2 million short. You could take $2 million out of that, we could put it right into the schools, we'd still have our bond rating, everything would be fine. As the counselor candidates talked about, we actually, and you wouldn't believe this from all the austerity talk, we are a very wealthy community. Our government pulls in a lot of money, it has a lot of money to spend, it just spends it on a lot of the wrong things. And when we go into schools, we can kind of nitpick and ooh, that and the other. Here's the danger of relying on fundraising, especially on a PTO or PTA level. The school that has the poorest kids is going to have the least amount of money. So that's a problem, obviously. And I think there's a lot of that kind of piecemeal, kind of covering up problems in this city that the average person logically knows is not going to work. Okay, we'll rely on the PTO, but you know, Bridge Street is, it'll be all right. You know, that's not okay. That's not okay. We need to fully fund our basic requirements as a government. And when the school committee comes back and says, this is how much money we need just to do the bare minimum, right? That doesn't include sports at the middle school. We should be funding our schools more. We should be improving our schools, not cutting them.
Thank you. Ms. Scher?
So school funding is also my primary focus. I've increased funding more than any mayor we can trace back to. It's the first time in over 50 years the increase has been more than 5% for 4 years in a row. And it's been 5, 7.4, 9.8, and 6.5%. So that is historic spending in the schools. But this kind of question has been going on for decades. I'm sure many of you in the room are familiar with NEF. This is why NEF was created. This is how we fund public education in this country is bananas. Let's just be realistic about that. And schools are always scrounging. We just don't have enough funding for public schools anywhere in this country. It's not the priority of the federal government. In many states, it's far less a priority of the state government. Thankfully, our state, I think, does prioritize it, but I've already outlined all the ways that it's letting us down as well. So these are perennial questions in schools everywhere. And I wish we didn't have to do fundraising for extra things that we want, but this is not a new thing. And I'm so grateful for all the way the community does step up, and for NEF that has been, I think, around for over 20 years, providing extras for our schools.
Thank you. Alexander?
Yes. So the city plans to convert the former First Baptist Church downtown into the planned resilience hub. We heard some concerns yesterday about how the city may have overpaid for this project. Do you support the city's approach? I guess this question is divided between the incumbent and the challengers. For the challengers, do you support the city's approach to creating the resilience hub to address the unhoused population and climate-related emergencies? And then for Mayor Shara, how do you defend against this project?
Mr. Dombrowski, would you start, please?
The resilience hub, this is what we're speaking about. Yeah, the resilience hub, if you go online and watch the mayor and the person she appointed to oversee the resilience hub, roughly the first 6.5 minutes, the gentleman gets up there and explains what this resilience hub is for. He rattles off many services that the city will offer through this resilience hub, but really these services are already in place and have been in place for some time in the city. As far as overpayment, I just don't think the whole thing is needed because there are services in place already. I just think it was not the best investment, and I don't agree with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shara?
Sure. So for the 20 years that I've lived here, people have asked consistently, what are we going to do about the houseless population? And I believe we have to stop talking about it and start doing, and doing with compassion and to help where other levels of government have failed people. So the Division of Community Care is already doing amazing work addressing acute needs and connecting people to services, and we've largely been able to stand that up with grant funding. We can build on that with the Resilience Hub, bringing the DCC together with other critical services under one roof: food, housing assistance, employment opportunities, meeting personal needs, healthcare programs, and harm reduction. So those who are houseless can more easily get what they need to survive and hopefully move towards housing. This idea came from a task force created before I was mayor with robust community input, including from the unhoused population. We identified a long dormant building in the right location with a lot of pre-existing features that we needed. And we got an independent appraisal and paid a little less than the appraised value. We did not use local taxpayer money. We used federal community development block grant, ARPA funds, one-time cannabis mitigation, and donations. And we need more grant funding to get the building ready. And that's harder now because the federal grants specific for resilience hubs, this is not a new concept, have been pulled by the Trump administration. But we are still hustling, and we are not exposing taxpayers to risk for this, but this is something that's desperately needed for our community.
Thank you. Mr. Brindell?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely the number one thing on the campaign trail that most people say to me they disagree with, and that goes from supporters of the mayor to people who disagree with the mayor on pretty much everything. Because I think this, when we were talking about transparency in the last forum, this is really what it speaks to. People don't understand what the thinking was behind this. Mayor Narkowitz tapped the roundhouse on the other side of Pulaski Park, down the hill, as that could be the resilience hub. That was his plan when he left office. $3.2 million for a building that at best is valued at $1 million. There are memos from the planning director talking about walking through the building and how it's ready to move into. This is a building that you can't even get up because it doesn't have stairs and the doors are all boarded up. We haven't been working on it even during the Biden administration, which means that we are not serving our houseless population, which is about 200 to 250 people in this town that deserve us to take care of them, not to pander to them. When we talk about how it was paid for without local funds, 1.8 million of the 3.2 was from the weed excise tax. That is local funds. That was more than half of the weed excise tax that probably should have gone to our kids or to our schools, but condescendingly, we threw it at the houseless. It's now sitting at the bottom of a construction site that's never, ever going to finish. And I don't think the city's plans are to finish it. I think we're trying to unload it, and I don't think we're going to be able to. And you just have to look at the building to know that.
Ms. Duclos.
I hear about the hub a lot also on doors, talking to people in the community. I talk a lot about the role of municipal government, and I think we have outstretched what that role is in a lot of ways, and I think the hub is a really great example. When I came onto the DNA, the first thing that I really understood was that we have a lot of different entities in this city that are all trying to do the same thing. And I thought to myself, why is everybody trying to do the same thing? We don't have a lot of resources. Let's find the best places that those resources lie and utilize them in that way. I think the hub is a great example. I think we have a lot of resources here and a lot of nonprofits that actually do the work that the hub is intended to do. And to me, I don't understand why municipal government is trying to compete with that. What it should be doing is partnering with nonprofits to help find that kind of funding and ensure that the resources that already exist to mitigate those issues are funded in better ways. I think that the role of municipal government is to invest in essential services, sidewalks, roads, education, police, fire, and that we should be partnering with private and nonprofit industry to do work like what we are seeing with the hub. And I think that, we also haven't operationalized it. We bought a building that isn't ready, and that is time for me.
Thank you. Jean.
This is another question that we've got a whole lot of variations of. So, Northampton is home to a large branch of L3 Harris. the 6th largest weapons manufacturer in the U.S., which makes missiles, surveillance weaponry, and parts integral to nuclear weapon launches. Do you believe L3 Harris should be allowed to operate in Northampton? If not, would you support a city ordinance banning the production of such weapons in Northampton and a commitment to the investments in ethical jobs?
Ms. Shara, would you start?
Sure. So I understand why this is so upsetting. I am not comfortable with the fact that L3 Harris is in Northampton either. They own their property, they own their plant that they built, and this was all done well before I was even on the council. So they are here. There had been a lot of talk about whether we could deny them a business certificate. That's something that's required by Mass General Law, so we couldn't do that. So I don't believe that there's any way to change the fact that they are here. That's just reality. I do think you could pass an ordinance that would prevent another business like them from coming, and I would certainly be interested in that. But I don't think you'd be able to pass one that would then, post facto, get rid of L3 Harris.
Thank you. Mr. Dombrowski?
I'm not opposed to them being there. That's a part of the tax base now. I mean, like the mayor just said, they own their property and the building. I just don't see why anybody, doesn't matter what the business is, just let them conduct their business. I mean, what's the problem with that? Just because they're making parts for certain whatever? I mean, that's just how I feel. Thank you.
Ms. Duclos?
Yes, I've been watching this very closely, and I've met a lot of folks who are out protesting L3 Harris. I believe there was a protest last week. I read an article about it in the Shoestring. At the end of that article, they talked about how they believe that if the community could decide, right, that they would not want L3 Harris here. I personally do not align with what they do for business, but as my role as mayor, it is my job to ensure the fiscal responsibility of this city. And with that tax revenue to fund schools and our essential services. I do think, however, there are ways to encourage the community to stand up and put together a ballot measure around it. You know, if the community came out and voted on the fact that they did not want L3 Harris here, that would be a whole different story. And that would be, you know, I would be working really hard to find ways to make that happen for the community, as well as to find a place to fill L3 Harris if it happened to be that we could actually stop them from distributing there. I've talked about bringing Roots here, you know, like out in Westfield. It'd be really great for parents to have some more programming and you know, activities and daycare for our children and families. So that could be something we could see down the road.
Mr. Brindell?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really major problem nowadays. You know, for a long time, we've had a lot of activists who have been very outspoken about the problem with having an arm of the military-industrial complex in our town. I agree with that. I am very anti-war. That being said, the mayor's right. This is not necessarily something that the mayor could do or necessarily something that the city will have an easy time doing. That being said, right, we have crossed a threshold. L3 Harris is taking on bigger and bigger projects for this government, for the military. They are currently making nuclear weapon systems. What that means is we are now a military target if there's ever a nuclear war. That's not okay. So we need to find a way to get them out. And we need to find a way before that of having an economic development plan for how the city and the tax base is going to survive in a post-L3 Harris world. But they belong on a base, not in our backyard. And I think they would probably agree with that if you push them to it. And this is something that we need to take very seriously, and we need to start pursuing immediately. And just accepting that there's nothing we can do and throwing our arms up in the air and becoming a military target that we didn't ask to be, I don't accept that, and I reject that, and I would do everything that I could to make sure that the city could survive them leaving, and everything I could to make sure that they leave. Thank you.
Alexander, I'm going to squeeze in one more question. This is going to be 1-minute answers.
Okay.
For the timers.
Yeah, very simple. What specific policies would you implement to support local entrepreneurs and encourage the growth of small business in our city, especially downtown?
Sorry, could you say?
Oh, sorry if I said that too fast.
Yeah, you don't have to go fast.
What specific policies will you implement to support local entrepreneurs and encourage the growth of small business in our city, especially downtown?
Okay, Ms. Duclos, please start.
Yes, I come from the small business community, and I've been working with them very closely for a very long time. I started at Sylvester's restaurant, then Roberto's, and then I ran the Downtown Northampton Association. There are a lot of things that we could do to support economic development. One of them would be to have a dedicated economic development director that would really understand the intricacies of our small businesses and what we could do to help them. Another thing that I have talked about is a vacant storefront tax, which has been implemented in other areas, in which taxes, if vacant storefronts are empty for a certain period of time, then the people who own those properties will be taxed. But that tax money goes into a fund to support resources for small businesses. But it is all cyclical, because once that landlord rents out that storefront, then the new business that moves in there has access to those resources and the money that they paid into that tax. So I think those are really great things we could do to support our small business community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dombrowski?
Well, I think that mixed-use development in the downtown areas, building apartments and homes and commercial space and office space, as well as retail space. And in that retail space, within those three communities, which are downtown, Florence, and maybe eventually Leeds, I think that that is good foot traffic to keep business downtown. The Main Street project, I think that could be refined a bit more. So there's more benefit for cyclists and it's safer. And moving into the future, I would like to see trams actually come to the city, and that would even keep downtown busier, and it would allow for people from the city to come downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brindell?
Yeah, this is very important to me, and obviously very important to the city, and it's obviously a bit of a crisis right now. We have about 17 empty storefronts on Main Street. It was 15 just about a month ago the last time I counted. So this is a problem, and a lot of this is that it's being hollowed out under the threat of Picture Main Street in the far future. I don't think that Picture Main Street is going to be the economic development for downtown that we're saying it is, and neither does every single business owner that I've talked to, which, to be honest, is a lot of them. Many of them are afraid that they are going to have to leave. They are looking at loss in revenue. They have explicitly had meetings with the mayor and the planning department in which they've been told they may go out of business. So I've been talking to a lot of them, and there's a lot that we can do. We have to abandon the Picture Main Street plan. We need to start to invest more in our empty storefronts and starting to get some things into there. As a government, we can facilitate pop-ups and short-term stays in there, which would help to get people on their feet and entrepreneurship. A lot of people want to start things in the city, but don't feel like they can. But the most important thing is reopening the venues. We make money off of our tourists, and when the venues are closed, we squeeze residents more and more for that money because we're not bringing people in. We need to be attractive again.
Ms. Shara?
So as mayor, I started the vacant storefront program that helps businesses start, entrepreneurs start in empty storefronts that gives some funding from the city and some from the state. And that's been a successful program. I also devoted $4 million of our ARPA funds to community recovery grants. Many of those also went to small businesses. And I would absolutely say that the best thing that we can do to revitalize our downtown is to complete Picture Main Street.
Thank you. One more minute, 4 more minutes, you can clap. Closing statements, we'll begin with Mr. Brindell, please.
All right, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this tonight, and Bombix, Alex, the Gazette, Northampton Open Media, most of all of you guys that are here and everybody watching at home. I just want to thank you guys for being a part of this. By far the best part of running, and it's been mostly good, has been the people. I mean, you guys are amazing. Northampton is amazing. The people are great, and they have so much energy and so much passion, so much creativity, and so much potential. And the sad thing about being on the trail is that I hear from so many people that they have to leave because their rents are exploding, or they can't start a business because there's nowhere to do it, or they can't do the thing they want to do. I've met woodworkers who can't find a place to build a table. We should be fixing this. This is sad. You guys are great. I want to help you guys be as great as you could possibly be, because when that happens, the city could be as great as it could possibly be. I don't want to walk out of City Hall and have everything that I see look different than it does right now. I want to make it look vibrant and exciting, but I want Northampton. Thank you.
Shara.
So thank you again to Kathy, Jean, and Alex, to the League, to the Gazette, the Chamber, and to NOM for organizing this important forum, and of course to Bombex for hosting us. And to everyone who attended in person or virtually, and thanks for all of your very thoughtful questions. I hope I was able to convey my love and my deep commitment to our city, and how I've tried to give back over the last 20 years. I don't really enjoy talking about myself, but I am incredibly proud of the years of work I've invested in our city, from raising funds to preserve our local history, to serving on the city council, and as council president, and as being your mayor. The job of managing our city is not a one-person job. It requires a community of dedicated public servants, of elected representatives, and engaged residents. I wouldn't even consider being mayor, particularly at this treacherous time in our country, if I didn't have so many strong, dedicated people inside and outside City Hall to do it with me. The work has been the most challenging I have ever taken on, but it's also the most rewarding, precisely because of who I am doing it for and who I am doing it with. So thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I ask for your support for a second term as mayor.
Mr. Dombrowski.
Yeah, we talked about the housing concerns and shortage, homeless people. Quite honestly, none of that is going to be solved with typical building. Everything's going to continue to remain high. Your taxes will continue to either at least remain where they are or increase over time. There is no solution to fix that unless the city does something for the people and how to build the mixed-use development. It's not going to be just stick-built projects. It needs to be prefabricated, which will save money. It'll drop the cost of the purchase of homes, and as well as apartments. And that's the only path out of this financial expense. Thank you.
Ms. Duclos.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming and staying curious. This has been a really amazing experience, being out on doors, talking to people, really understanding from the ground up what's happening here in Northampton and how we can utilize local government to remove the barriers. That's really what we're looking at. And, you know, I have done a lot in my life. I have built from the ground up. I have fallen. I have gotten